So in India, where you live is a lot of times your brothel. Like there's no difference. And in India, we worked with women. We had this time in India where we had to choose, are we going to choose justice or mercy? And we chose to go the mercy route. So a majority of our women that we worked with were trafficked when they were younger, came up through the system. And by the time you're 27, 28, you're used goods. So you usually go to like the cheaper red light district, or you become an owner. And those women are more free to leave by the time they get to 27, 28, 29, 30. We gave them employment because they had come up under slave labor, and they were free to leave, and they came and worked for us. So we still had to walk by the 13-year-old, but we were breaking the cycle because the women that were with us were never going to be owners. We're breaking the cycle for their children, and we're trying to keep them in the red light district if possible, so their room cannot be taken by someone else.
Kristin, welcome to the Superhuman Life.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, really excited about today's conversation. So, for the audience out there, and for you as well, this is a very important discussion and conversation that we've had. So, for the last 3 years, obviously here in January being National Human Trafficking Awareness Month, we try to bring some awareness. Last year, we had Hannah on. Hannah was a trafficking survivor. We've had Sarah LaChance, founder of Stop the Movement. Previous January, we've had my friend Natasha that I was telling you about. We've had Lila from Trafficking Hub. I had Benji Nolo from Exodus Cryon a few months back. So for me, this is something in addition to running Rebuild Recovery, hosting the podcast. It's probably the third most important thing. And I can remember, so I started the podcast back in 2019, and it was really to begin to talk about my journey of overcoming pornography addiction. And then early January is when we got into coaching, helping men. And it was right around mid-2020 when somebody shared with me the connection between human trafficking and pornography. And at that point, it's like the blinders were removed, and I saw the truth of this industry. I saw the truth of the connection. And since that day, almost 2.5 years now, it's been like an all-in type of thing. Anything I can do in terms of having conversations, in terms of giving money, supporting local organizations. I've spoken at events. Like I said, we donated a lot of money last year. We're looking to really 10x that this year. I'm curious with you, Kristin, because you started Rethreaded in 2012 in Jacksonville, but you're actually involved in an organization earlier on in the early 2000s, Sari Bari. Can you take us back to the beginning, and where did this passion for you come in helping women?
So it was even earlier than that, that I actually kind of started this work. So I had some not great experiences in college and high school around the issue of sex. And I had an experience. I don't know if your listeners, if they have any religious, but I'm going to just talk openly about what happened to me and how.
Absolutely. No. Yeah, we are a faith driven show.
Okay.
Speak from your heart. We want Kristin to come out today.
In college, I had this experience where I became a Christian, and I felt like God said, I will take whatever you think is your greatest shame, and I will use it to change the world. And like, it became my passion of my life for women to know their worth and their value, and know they have a choice, know that whether that you have sex or not have sex, or your sexuality does not make you worthy as a woman, and just empower women to be who God created them to be. And I mean, I had no idea. I was like, I don't know, 21, 22 years old. And at that time, I was still like, I want to be married at 23, 3 kids by 30, a stay-at-home mom. Like, that was my dream of my life. And none of that has happened. So I feel like God just continues to take me places where I never thought I would go. But it was then that I majored in nutrition, did my internship in nutrition. I was like, I don't want to do this. And I ended up going to work in campus ministry, where a lot of my trauma happened, to go reach college women. And then through them, I met the organization Word Made Flesh, where they had just started work with women in the red light district. And I went over for what I thought was just an initial 4-month trip. You're discipled about God's heart for the poor. My last month there, we started to be able to go visit the red light district. And it was 30,000 women in like a 5 square block radius. 30% are underage. So there's like 15, 16-year-olds like on the street.
So red light district where?
In Calcutta, India.
Calcutta, India. Okay.
Yeah. Started in Calcutta, India. Yeah, I went over to Calcutta, India, spent 4 months, and that is when my world got rocked. Like my little world of who God is, what suffering is, what justice is, and like I ended up actually moving there back to India, and I lived there for 5 years, and me and my friend Sarah Lance, and then a little bit later my friend Beth Waterman came, and we ended up starting a business together for women so they would have a way to leave trafficking, leave the sex trade industry, and have freedom. And we started sewing the women started sewing blankets in this small room with no air conditioning and a fan, and we started with 3 ladies. And I was there for like the first 3 years and saw it grow to 30 women, and I came back to the States. And then literally I came back to the States. I was in Jacksonville, Florida, and my friends invited me to their church. So I got here on like a Friday, went to church on a Sunday, and the woman in front of me was a survivor of human trafficking. And we went out for coffee the next week. And she is one of the reasons why I ended up moving to Jacksonville. Met other women in human trafficking on the streets of Jacksonville, Florida, and I was like, this is it. This is the same thing. And I know what to do. I know if you create a community and economically empower a woman, she will change her life if she just has the opportunity. And that's how we started Rethreaded here.
How are you meeting these women? I mean, to, like everybody listening to this, right? They're gonna walk outside today, tomorrow, like they're gonna be in a public square, they're gonna be at a coffee shop, they're gonna maybe be at an intersection in a downtown area. They're gonna see people. To hear you say like I met people out in public that were traffickers. Was there something that you knew that you were able to identify? Was there a conversation starter that you had? Can you kind of walk me through that process
So,
of meeting traffickers in public?
not traffickers,
Not
meaning women who,
traffickers, trafficked victims. I'm sorry.
yeah, so it was very intentional. My friend, her name was Kathleen. She was the survivor of human trafficking, and she had started an outreach. There's an area of town called Phillips Highway here. It's kind of like Dale Mabry, the same reputation. People make jokes about it. It's like a known entity there. So we started going and just meeting women on the street. It was a little crazy, which I kind of loved that on the edge. I was with Kathleen, and we'd like see a woman, and we'd like pull over in our car and like, hey, this is who we are, and just share with her and give her a bottle of water and just talk with her and
So were
start to
these
form a
women like working the streets then in prostitution? Is that kind of what you were looking
working the
for?
streets. Yep. So we could see they were by themselves. They were, I don't know how to describe it. I could do it in India too. I could find the woman who was working. It's called working the line in India. There's a certain look, certain way they walk, how they make eye contact, how they don't make eye contact. Yeah, and we would pull up the women and start talking to them.
And what was the initial reaction from the women?
It depended on the situation. Women would like cuss us up and down and be like, what the F do you want? Get out of here. And other women, I had some really amazing times during those 2 years. Like I had this one time where this woman just like collapsed into my chest and just sobbed. I forgot about that. I haven't thought about that in a long time, and just sobbed. And then a couple of the women I got to know really well because I would see them on a regular basis. I started going out with Kathleen on a regular basis. And like this one time we were after this woman, we're trying to find her. We had heard she had gone to this one hotel. So I went and tried to find her in this one hotel. It's like one of those stereotypical things that people hear about, like drug infested, all of this. And I knocked on the door and someone said, come in. And I walk in the room, and she's in a bed high, and there's like 25 people in the room all getting high together. And I know I've never struggled with addiction in that way, like drug addiction. And she was high, and she's like, please don't come in now. Don't see me like this. And we followed her like all the time and tried to find her. But then she eventually was able to leave Jacksonville. She's still in touch with that woman, Kathleen, that I told you about. And I got to talk to her on the phone over FaceTime about a year ago. And she is clean and sober and safe and married. She totally remembers us on the street going to see her. Yeah, forgot about that.
Now, what year? This is 2012, 2013.
That was more like 2000 when I first moved back from India. That's like 2009, 2010. So I came back from India and I knew that I wanted to start something here in Jacksonville. So I started running home parties and selling products from all the companies I knew in India. Like the company I started in India, and I knew like 5 other companies that had started to give women freedom. So I started selling those products at night and working as a dietitian during the day. And all the money I was making from home parties, I was putting in the bank, knowing that I gave myself 2 years at this job. In 2 years, I'm going to start something for women in Jacksonville. And literally, almost 2 years to the day, I quit that job.
Now, I would assume it reaches a certain point, right? Like you're out on the streets, you're talking to these women. Um, you do that enough, like there's gonna begin to be some rumblings, right, behind the scenes in that industry. Like this girl, Kristin. Like, was there ever concern for your safety, like going out on the streets, walking into a hotel with 25 people, you have no clue, you have maybe know one of them. Were you ever worried about your safety?
No. I mean, I don't know. I lived for 5 years in India. I did 5 years working with women on the street. It was a naive. Like now that I know more about how it works here in the States, I don't know if I would do that again. So like but my personality is like, I'm an entrepreneur to the deepest part of myself and I jump in and figure it out. And also, if I'm after someone, like if I'm like, you matter to me, I will just go. Which is also sometimes not the safest. I would not recommend walking into a room of 25 people who are high on drugs in a drug infested hotel known for trafficking and violence. Don't do that. There's actually not any need to do that.
One of the things you said at the beginning, one of the experiences in India rocked your world, and that kind of changed everything. Can you share a little bit more about that experience and what it is you either saw or felt?
So there's two things I can share. The first thing was on my first initial 4 months, we were the red light district there is like you walk down the main lane and we would talk to women along the way who were called working the line because women like you literally stand in a line. So we would talk to them as we went through. We didn't know very good Bengali at that point, so it's more like, what did you eat? How was your day? And everyone wanted to talk to us because we're kind of a novelty. And there are I mean, there's thousands of women, but there's hundreds of women lining the street. At the end of the street, there's this group of young girls, and like 14, 15 years old. And for some reason, we bonded with those girls and talked to them. And it was like, you can almost, like when you're talking to them, you can almost forget where you're at. And one day on the street, we bought Pepsi and chips. Same words in Bengali as English, so we could communicate this. Like Pepsi, chips, good. We're having Pepsi and chips on the street with these 14, 15-year-olds laughing, having this moment. Then, like a couple weeks go by, they're not there, we're not there, and it's getting towards our last time to go to the red light district. I'm going home after this to kind of decide what I want to do. We see these young girls again. One of them sees me, says, wait here. I have something for you. And she runs full on as fast as she can down the street to her brothel. She comes running back and she has something in her hand. And she had saved her tip money and bought me and my coworker chocolate bars. And she asked me to my face, I was like, well, we're going back to our country tomorrow. And she goes, will you come back? And I was like, I don't know. And she's like, why wouldn't you come back? And I was like, I don't know why I wouldn't come back for you. Like, I'll come back. And I came back. And the
Was she
other
there?
side of it, she was there. And I actually just went back last month in December, and she's still on the line.
Still.
Yeah. That's heartbreaking. Yeah.
Almost 20 years.
Almost 20 years. But then we have opposite stories where there's women at the company we started in India who've also been there for 20 years and they have 20 years of freedom. Their kids are in school. The cycle of exploitation is broken. They're in leadership. They have job skills. I mean, and their life is forever changed. And that's what I have to fall back on sometimes.
So tell us a little bit about the Indian company. Then I want to obviously get back to
Rethreading.
Rethreaded. What are these
Yeah.
women? What are these women doing? How do you find them? How do you get them off of the street and get them into employment?
So our philosophy when we started Sari Bari was, it still is community transformation. So we formed relationships with women in the red light district, and most of them lived in the red light district. So we ended up renting the building we rented at that time was close to the red light district. So the idea was we employ women in our company sewing blankets and bags that we're going to sell in the United States in our company. And they stay in their brothel so another woman can't come behind and be trafficked into their room. And eventually we'll take over the red light district by taking up property in the red light district.
Wait, so while they start employment with you, they're still being trafficked.
Nope, they're still living. So in India, where you live is a lot of times your brothel. Like there's no difference. And in India, we worked with women. We had this time in India where we had to choose: are we going to choose justice or mercy? And we chose to go the mercy route. So a majority of our women that we worked with were trafficked when they were younger, came up through the system. And by the time you're 27, 28, you're used goods. So you usually go to like the cheaper red light district, or you become an owner. So what we would do, and those women are more free to leave by the time they get to 27, 28, 29, 30. We gave them employment because they had come up under slave labor, and they were free to leave, and they came and worked for us. And they came and worked for us. So we still had to walk by the 13-year-old, but we were breaking the cycle because the women that were with us were never going to be owners. We're breaking the cycle for their children, and we're trying to keep them in the red light district if possible, so their room cannot be taken by someone else. And
Okay.
yeah, I haven't talked about this part in so long. And it's such a good time. Yeah, that was the philosophy.
What was good? Because I mean, hearing like, I understand what's good, but I'm curious for you. Just as the audience is hearing this, 13, 14, 16-year-old girls, getting raped, getting trafficked. By the time a woman's 27, like she's no longer useful, she's used goods. It's such a dark evil. To hear that it was a good time. I mean, I understand why, but what were you getting?
So this is the irony of the whole thing, is that experiencing that with women was not enjoyable. What was amazing was, like, my main job when I was there is I was the brothel outreach coordinator. So I would go and I would spend 8 hours a day in brothels with women, sitting there, usually drinking tea and talking to them, just being with them, having conversation. And then I would go and spend one day in our company at Sari Bari with women who are now out and free and learning and sewing blankets, getting healed. So I would have enough hope inside me from that one day at Sari Bari in our business to go out and sit with women and sit with the 15 and 16-year-olds, sit and be in the midst of that, because I knew there was hope now because we had started this business. And those women that we started Sari Bari with are my freaking heroes. And that's why it was so good, because of who we got to know and the relationships we had, and like just such, not perfect. Oh my gosh, there's so much dysfunction. But so good because you're in it together.
What was the support from the community, law enforcement? For me, it's like, if I have an opportunity to talk about, one of the organizations here that I'm involved in, or just this, it's like, I have a hard time understanding, like, once you hear this, how you're not like, how do I get involved? How do I help? How do I support? Was it as responsive over there from the people within the community?
No, it is like night and day. First of all the police in the red light areas are in on it, because all the brothel owners are paying bribes because it's illegal to run a brothel. So if you're a policeman there, you're making lots of money because you're getting lots of bribes. So lots of police officers will pay their police officers to get into the red light district so they can make money. And that so the level of corruption goes all the way to the top. So no. And then there's a stigma in America, but it is worse in India because of the status of women. Like your worth is directly tied to your sexual purity. And only bad people are in the red light district. So men are not allowed to be associated with it. Women aren't allowed to be associated with it. It is bad, shameful people. So just the stigma alone keeps people ironically keeps people in the red light district. So no, there was not. We had two Indian workers. We kept everything we did a secret to everyone outside of what we did. No, it was no, because the stigma's so deep. It's getting better. India's getting better. The status of women is getting better, and everything's changing. But
Are are all of the girls from India, or is it sophisticated enough to where they're literally shipping in women from other parts of the country or other parts of the world?
there it was mostly the neighboring countries of Nepal and Bangladesh that we would see. There might have been like in the higher up brothels that we would never have access to, but like for example, in one of the brothels that we spent a lot of time in, it was full of women from Nepal, and we got to know one of the 15-year-old girls and how she was trafficked. She's from a small village in Nepal. It's very poor, and this guy drove by in a car and said, "Hey, do you want to make 3,000 rupees a month to support your family?" She's like, "Yeah, I would love to help my family." And he's like, "Well, you need to come with me now." And she's 15. Just knowing she got in the car with him, and he proceeded to rape her, and she was raped along the way, and then got put in this brothel. I'll spare you the other stories, but the short story is we would sit with her in her brothel and get to know her. She tried to like remember her address so we could get her like a letter to her family so she could tell her family that she was okay because they didn't know what happened to her. But we were able to work with the International Justice Mission, who was there in the red light district we were working in. And because we knew the red light district so well, we were able to draw a map out and be like, in this brothel number one, there's a 15-year-old Nepali girl that lives on this floor. This is her name, blah, 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 blah. And we were able to walk them through the red light district and be like, this is who you need to go get. So then International Justice Mission worked with the local police and would do raids on the brothels, and that girl got rescued. Yeah, and got sent back to Nepal. So those are the good stories.
So bringing it back to the states here, Jacksonville and Rethreaded. You returned back 2009, 2010. You're like out on the streets, identifying girls, beginning to kind of like build this mission and this movement, still while working full time. When did the clarity for Rethreaded come? Like this is what we're gonna do, and what were some of those early days like?
Oh, so I call everyone around that time my napkin friends because I would like take napkins and be like, "This is what we're gonna do. We're gonna meet a woman on the street. We're gonna have a home. We're gonna have a business. We're gonna have this." And I would like draw this huge vision because that's what I do. Um, but it became more clear as we went through the process. Like I formed a board that I was like, see, I should never say this. The only thing I didn't want to do was start a business. Only thing I didn't want to do. And it became very clear as we were going down this journey that we needed to start a business so women could have employment because they'll never be able to leave unless they have access to a job. And that's how it started. And this guy approached me and said, "Hey, I have this business idea. Everyone has t-shirts. No one knows what to do with t-shirts. So why don't you figure a way to upcycle t-shirts?" And I was like, he's like, I'll help you. And I was like, "That's a great idea. Let's do it." And he was around for like another week or two. But that was already up. Yeah. And I was like, well, we're going to figure out something to do with t-shirts. And that's how it all started was the one thing I didn't want to do. And now I've been doing it for 13 years. We've helped like 75 women in employment. And I feel like we're just beginning in some ways.
So you find these women on the street, they're being trafficked. you give them employment. What's going on with the other areas of their lives?
Our model is a little bit, we don't work with women who are coming directly off the streets. When women are coming out of human trafficking, coming off the street, they are in trauma mode, usually in addiction. There's no way they could come to work for us then. So what we've done is we work with different rehab facilities, different homes, and we work with women who are coming out and they have 6 months of some kind of stability. Like it's the rehab in our town is called Gateway. There's River Region. There's Her Song, like a lot of homes. So then they come to us for stage two because a woman has to be able to function in somewhat function in life by the time she gets to us. And the same thing that happened in India happens here. In India, those three, the first three women at Sari Bari knew each other. They were friends. They came out together. Those women got stable. They got a job. They learned how to sew. Then they invited their friends because no one ever left alone. No one ever leaves alone. It's kind of like probably the men you work with. No one ever heal. It's impossible to heal alone. It takes community, and that's the same thing in Rethreaded here in Jacksonville. It's like our survivors who get clean, sober, empowered go back and get their friends, and they and pave the way for them. That's how it works, and it's like the most beautiful thing.
It's amazing. Um, I like to, if you can, maybe maybe enlighten the audience a little bit, right? Obviously we've done a handful of episodes, so there's going to be a good portion that probably knows some of these statistics. And I know I didn't prepare you for this, so hopefully you have something to share here. I think when people hear about sex slavery or trafficking, that's a third world problem, right? It's like India, right? It's Nepal. It's like, yeah, it's happening over there. It's not in our town. That's not in our community. But you and I both know, like, number one, the number one buyer is this guy right here. Not me personally, but I fit the profile, right? White man, Caucasian, so forth and so forth. So can you kind of talk a little bit about the true problem? Like how big of an issue is this here in the States, and then specifically in Jacksonville?
What we know, the numbers that I know off the top of my head is Florida ranks third in reported cases of human trafficking. Duval County, my county, ranks third in the state for reported cases of human trafficking, and out of the whole entire country, Jacksonville ranks 48th. We've had like I don't even know I don't know the numbers, like 200 cases ish, 200 people identified in Jacksonville that are survivors of human trafficking. We had this conversation with our ladies the other day, and they said that number is BS. Because they said it is happening in Jacksonville, and our women will tell you, they're like, I guarantee you any hotel in Jacksonville, trafficking is happening. And they will list off hotels in Jacksonville where they have been trafficked, where their friends have been trafficked, and it pretty much is most every single hotel, from the top tier down to the stereotypical ones. And we had this discussion about what people don't understand about human trafficking. It's the use of force, fraud, or coercion to perform a sex act. It is not kidnapping. A majority of cases are not kidnapping. Only 5% are kidnapping. The others is the trafficker forms a relationship with that person, builds trust, grooms them for time, like a period of time, and then enters force, fraud, or coercion. And then they get put into the life, and then it's called immersion. So women are in the life. It's kind of like this period where they've just submitted to it. Like they've tried to escape, they can't get out. They think of escaping, but they don't want to leave this man who loves them. They're so immersed in it, or they think, I chose this, and they're so full of shame that they won't even try to leave. They're like, I deserve this at this point. So that's what our women were talking about the other day, is that so many women do not realize they're even victims of human trafficking. They're just in the life and they're accepting it like, oh, this is normal that I can't leave and he beats the crap out of me every day. They just don't know anything else. And they're acting out of survival mode in their brain, so they lose their ability to think rationally. So it's this huge, complex problem. And our women are like, the numbers do not tell the story that are out there now. They're like, it is so much more. And they'll tell you stories like how they were like put in the hospital by their trafficker and they were treated like a drug addict the whole time and no one ever asked them a question about what's going on in their life. So like, it's just, it is bigger than we think. Because, and then our women will tell us, yeah, our customers are, they're pastors, fathers, they work in the jail, they're judges, they're politicians. They were, one time we had a newscaster. I mean, they're like, they'll tell you it's the person who you would never suspect. I'm sorry, I'm talking a lot.
No, that's why I have this is an interview, Kristin. That's why I have you here. The audience doesn't want to listen to Frank speak. There's trust me, there's plenty of Frank speaking. We're 168 episodes in. I'm here for this. And the audience is as well. I think these are stats coming from OUR, Operation Underground. I think 150 billion a year annually, globally is what the industry demands. More money, more revenue than the NFL, NHL, NBA, and MLB combined. You take all that, you still have enough money to literally put every American into public university, and you still wouldn't reach the top of it.
Isn't that crazy?
It's massive. Assuming you've had enough chance or enough time to spend with some of these women, like once they've been on the other side and obviously through the employment, have any of them been able to clearly articulate what they needed themselves? Like, so here I'm maybe speaking to like a father out there, or maybe a guy that has women. The vast majority of our audience is going to be men. What does a young woman need in her life to keep her from falling into this life?
She needs to be in a society that values women. So the bigger picture is, as a culture, do we value women? We just had this conversation, and I just spoke this morning, like everything from music videos to people's attitudes on prostitution, to women in leadership, to equality of women. So for example, the countries that have the lowest rates of trafficking also have the most equitable pay. They have women in leadership. And they've also, as a country, decided that prostitution hurts women. Prostitution hurts people. And that as a country, we will not support it because we value human beings over this. And those are the countries that have the lowest. So we have to be a society that values women outside of their sexuality and offers equal opportunity. So for fathers, brothers, to learn that themselves. How to be a sexual person in the world in a healthy way. How men can be sexually healthy in a world. That's really how it's going to be solved. And then be consistent with your daughters, speak words of affirmation over them, create safe spaces for them. If I would say also, like, for a man to learn how to handle his daughter's sexuality instead of kind of like denying it or being intimidated by it, how do you embrace your daughter's sexuality in a healthy way that doesn't make it weird or awkward or is open? So she respects that part of herself and there's not shame attached to it.
It's really good, really good stuff there, Kristin. One thing we talk a lot about here, obviously with men, is the importance of fathering, right? The importance of being a strong father, the importance of playing a fatherly role. If maybe you don't, so myself, single man, no kids, but I try to have an impact in young men's lives. From my nephew, I literally moved to be 6 minutes away from my nephew. He's 12 years old. I was coaching his baseball team. Like, it's amazing because I walk through a grocery store now, like in the community that I live in. It's like Coach Frank, the little boy's voice, and it's almost like all these kids now look at me as like a big brother, uncle type figure, because we know that there's obviously a massive issue in the US, right, with fatherlessness. You look at prison, right? 80% of prison inmates grew up in a fatherless home. Curious if you have any stats with the women, like how many of these women come from fatherless homes?
I don't have any stats on that, but I do know the biggest vulnerability of anyone to be trafficked is the need to belong. and the need for love. And every single person as a human being has that. So if it's not being met in a healthy way with family, with healthy friends, a person will find it and the trafficker will exploit it. But I also know as foster children are like, you know, 95% more vulnerable than anyone on the planet. I mean, yeah.
Well, I mean, that's probably the foster care, I don't, institution or whatever that the entire thing would be called. Like, that's something that probably just needs to be blown up and kind of rebuilt from the bottom up, because we've had some episodes with people that were bounced around through foster care and the trauma and abuse and all that. Like, yeah, that's a recipe just for complete destruction. But when I hear you say it's like these women, it's like, they're getting beaten, abused, and it's like, I can't leave this guy that loves me. And that's clearly a sign of a woman that like doesn't understand what real strong masculine love is supposed to be. So they fall into this. But I love that you talked about like the societal thing, right? Like, that's something that we spend a lot of time working on, is how do you appreciate a woman's beauty? Women were created in God's image, but created to be beautiful. And then we know the male brain is responsive visually to that. But the world, society has hijacked this, right? Through pop culture, pop music, sex sells, right? That's always been a classic term in marketing. We can have a Ferrari with a beautiful woman and her ass is sticking out with a bikini, and that's going to sell more cars. We know that, but that's clearly objectifying the woman. So what I'm hearing you say is like, we gotta change this literally from the bottom up, and just how the world sees women. We appreciate their beauty, but they don't need to be sexual objects.
Yeah. And how do we, I mean, I'm thinking of like strip clubs, and I'm thinking of my friend who's like a teacher at a middle school. And like, she was trying to talk to these middle schoolers, like, hey, I need you to do your math homework, blah, blah, blah. And this girl says to her, she's like, I don't need to do my homework. She's like, it doesn't matter. She's like, I'll just get on the pole when I get older. So like, it was in middle school, like 8th grade. So like, she's being groomed from, you know, at 8th grade. How old are you? Like 13, 14. She's been taught she can use her sexuality. She doesn't need anything else. I mean, it's just, so it's all the layers.
Yeah. What are you seeing with? I mean, obviously, OnlyFans is feeding to this is as well. Is OnlyFans becoming an outlet for traffickers and trafficked victims?
Well, this is what I find interesting. I watched a documentary on OnlyFans because I was like, I want to know more about this. And this
Do you
was
remember
the
the name of
interesting.
it?
No, but I'll find out.
Yeah, text me that, please.
Yeah. They were just interviewing people who were selling on it. And two of the people that they were interviewing, as they got into their stories, were like, well, basically what I've been doing hasn't been enough, so I had to push myself further than I was comfortable with to get the money. So it's like they're trafficking themselves in some ways. Like, how does that happen in a person's heart? Like, they're what has happened in their brain that tells them this is my only option, so I have to go further than I'm comfortable with to earn the money on this page.
It reminds me of something I told you I had. Benji, I'm not sure if you're familiar with Benji in Exodus Cry. They do a lot of documentary filmmaking. They got a 3-part series out right now called Beyond Fantasy, where they really take a deep look into the barely legal side of things, like how literally we're creating pedophiles through pornography, because we're basically teaching that it's okay to rape young girls. And Benji was interviewing this producer, this pornographer, and asking them, like, how do you get the girls to do some of these things? And he's like, well, I get them to agree initially to a vanilla scene, right? Like, you have to do this to make this X amount of money. And he gets that buy-in. And he even said, I want them to spend the money in their mind. Like, and I'll even ask them questions. What are you going to do with this money? What are you going to buy for yourself? How are you going to go out and spend this? Now they're attached and they hold on to that. Then once they're in the act, once they're in the scene, he'll up the ante a little bit more. He's like, hey, in order for you to get paid today, you got to go a little bit further. You got to go a little bit further. And the pornographer stopped and looked Benji in the eyes and he goes, if you don't tell me that's trafficking, then I don't know what trafficking really is. Like, he literally admitted to using fraud and coercion
Force.
to
Yeah.
force and coercion to get these girls to do things on screen that they hadn't
Yes.
initially agreed to. And it sounds like with OnlyFans, girls are doing this with themselves.
Yeah. With themselves.
Yeah. So, you know, obviously we could go all day and we could have you share stories and darken all of this. You know, maybe with some of the remaining time, we can give the audience here some steps, something that they can do, empower some of the listeners. Obviously, I want to drive people to check out Rethreaded, so you know we can get we can get them on there because I know that money goes for good. What can the person listening, what can the average guy or girl listening to this today, whether they're in Jacksonville, they're in Tampa, or they're somewhere across the U.S. or the world, what are some things that they can begin to do to maybe help, support, get involved? Like, what would be a first step for somebody after today?
One of the first things you can do is get trained. So there's a great training that we talk about. It's put out by our Attorney General, Ashley Moody, and it's her and the Florida Alliance Against Human Trafficking, and it's an hour-long training. It's a great training. You can sign up and get educated, just so you know more what you're talking about. Because, like you said, there's so many different perceptions about what is human trafficking. It's usually not kidnapping. It's happening here, all that good stuff. And that training does a good job of explaining all that. So get yourself trained, and then be like Frank. Then go out and get involved in your community. Like, go out and serve in the way that you're passionate. Like, that's it. Go out and care for people in the way that brings you life, because the world needs you. Like, if it's vets, I don't care who it is. Like, people need people. So go out and serve. Kids need coaches, and be that person. And then, practically on our end, if you want to be involved with us, this is a great answer. Just shop with us. We run a purposeful gift company, so you can buy Christmas presents, birthday presents, Mother's Day presents. We recently purchased our first company. Like, we're a nonprofit. We purchased our first company. So now we make candy. We make the best toffee in the world. If you own a business, and you do any kind of corporate gifting, like gift boxes for your employees, your customers, like, just buy your corporate gifts from us. Like, it's not a complicated thing or this huge thing. Just change some little bit of way they shop, and you change the world. Yeah. So it's not these big things. That's what I think when everyone hears this about human trafficking. A lot of people want to go out and rescue and start nonprofits, and I'm like, no, go and be involved in your community, be a foster parent, be a coach. Doesn't matter. Get out there.
That was me when I felt I got the call to be involved in this. Like, I'm texting my buddies, I'm trying to find out who do I need to talk to. Like, we're going to kick down some fucking doors. Like, we're gonna
Yes.
and I had a meeting with somebody. I'm like, bro, I'm so ready. Like, you let me know when the next rescue mission. He's like, dude, you're way over your head right now. He's like, these are trained ex-military, ex-CIA, FBI. Like, for me to try to go out and think that I'm gonna kick a door down and step into a hotel room with 25 people, like, I'm chasing a fantasy with there. So we do what we can, right? I told you I have a couple strengths and superpowers there: the ability to communicate, the ability to build businesses. So we use our resources on that side of things and really being a great network and connector. So one thing I've been able to get very deeply plugged with the community here. Tell us about Rethreaded here a little bit. Obviously, we want to get people to shop there. I mean, it's 12, 13 years. What has kind of the company grown to? I think Justin told me you recently moved into a massive warehouse business. What's really going well, and what are you guys kind of looking forward to on the business side of things here in 2023?
So we are, we're in a new building. We came from 2,800 square feet, and now we have 36,000 square feet and 2 acres. It's so cool.
Amazing.
If you're ever in Jacksonville, you got to come.
Oh, I'll be up there very very shortly.
You are? Oh yeah, then
Yeah.
you have to.
Well, Justin's
Uh,
my best friend, and the episode prior to this, so we just had Patrick Young on, who's a local. Patrick is an amazing. Get with Justin. Make sure.
okay. I mean,
So Patrick
okay.
grew up in Jacksonville. Went on to be a McDonald's All-American, local school there. I think Providence is where he went to school. Played at the University of Florida under Billy Donovan. Played overseas. Tragic, has been working for ESPN and just had really a life-altering accident 6 months ago. He's been paralyzed. So we brought him on and kind of shared his story, what God's kind of doing in him, how he's using his platform now to really share, the gospel. So yeah, we'll definitely be up in Jacksonville. I want to check out your guys' facility.
You could all come on a tour. Um, and we are in the process of building our capacity to hire more women. So we're kind of a unique model. Like women come and they're employed in our organization and they're employed for 3 to 5 years. So it's shown that if you're coming out of severe complex trauma, which our women do, you need at minimum 2 years to heal. So that means 2 years to get your ability to like think and feel and operate in the world without. So that's why
Do you guys
you're
have
employed.
resources like for them as well that you provide in addition to the employment?
Yeah. So
Yeah.
they're employed, and then we've identified 91 barriers that a woman has to walk through to rethread her life after human trafficking. And we have over 300 nonprofit partners, and we walk with women to overcome the barriers. We have a Dress for Success program, finance, I mean, nutrition, everything. It's literally rebuilding your life from ground zero. I mean, our women are just the most amazing people in the whole world. I mean, such hard working women who do all the hard work of healing. It's all, I just, healing ain't for sissies. It's a long road to heal.
Yeah, and I'm sure these women, once they get on the other side and they are healed, they become lights to the
Oh,
world. Like your trauma always becomes your greatest superpower.
oh.
So I can
And
imagine.
that's the name Rethreaded, is like taking your threads of pain and rethreading them to a new purpose. So then the thread, and we talk about the thread becomes a rope for the others behind you to grab
Oh my
onto.
God, that's so
Yeah.
beautiful. So
It's so
beautiful.
good. Yeah.
So our company is Rebuilt Recovery. Yeah, rebuilt recovery, and it's a lot of the same meaning, right? Like our logo is a phoenix and a lion's head, kind of integrated. Like the phoenix being the symbol of death and resurrection. I believe to fully overcome or transcend your addiction, there's got to be a death of old self, and then we build them in back up. So just like you, we provide leadership, financial tools, fitness things, like anything to the guy to rebuild his life, or you're rethreading life. So I just love
Yeah.
the synergy on
We
on
might
on all
be
of this.
the same person. I might be the female version of you.
Very, 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 very likely. Well, I too thought I would be married and kids by the 35, and here I am. I'll be turning 40 this year. Still single,
Yep.
still still out there chasing purpose and just trying to impact the world in any
And
way
I
that I
live
can.
next door to my best friends, and their kids call me Aunt Kristen. So I'm being an aunt is like the greatest thing in the whole
Oh my
world.
God.
I take them on adventures and like, yeah, I mean, yeah.
Well, that's Landon and Peyton, Justin's kids. Justin's my high school best friend. We've grown up over 20 plus years, and anytime I get to see that family. So, Kristen, this has been amazing. I'm so grateful to have met you and got connected with you. I'm looking forward to a very fruitful relationship, partnership, anything we're going to be doing. Obviously, I have some people I want to connect you with. So we're going to get your site. We're going to get everything shared on there so people can start shopping with you. I have a final question here. We end every show with the same question. So it's going to take us a little bit different of a direction, maybe kind of bring some light into this conversation. So obviously the title of this show is called The Superman Life. For me, when I talk about living a Superman life, Kristen, it's really a belief system. It's a way that I believe we're all called to show up in the world every single day. And it comes from the place first, understanding that you are here for a purpose. God has created you and he's given you a purpose and calling for your life. But if you just accept that and then don't do anything about it, like that's not living superhuman. The superhuman part comes in when your intentionality and how you develop that purpose and how you bring that to the world in service of others to bring light into other people's lives. So that's what I mean when I talk about living a superhuman life. But Kristin Keen, as we end today's conversation, how would you define living a superhuman life?
I'm going to just make it real simple because it's been my prayer for myself is the ability to give and receive love.
It's
That's what I
beautiful.
got today.
No, that's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Guys, thank you for today. We ask you every single week to share these episodes with one person that maybe needs it. Today, I'm going to ask a little bit more. Share this with everybody. Obviously, we know because we've addressed this topic before, it is something we are very strongly passionate about. We know that it's something that needs the attention and needs the awareness. So we're asking every single person here today, hit that little share icon in Apple or whatever it is you're consuming this podcast and share this with as many people as possible. Make sure to check out Rethreaded. Make sure to buy your corporate gifts, your gifts for your wives, your girlfriends, your loved ones. Check out the site. And even is there a place, even if you don't buy, like, can we just give you money? Like, is there an option to
Yeah.
just
Donate.
donate
Yeah.
money? Just, yeah.
Donations is what supports the program. Yes. We love
Yeah.
donations.
So do everything you can, guys. But Kristen, so grateful for you and what you're doing out the world. Keep shining that light. I'm looking forward to meeting you here in person very, very soon. Guys, we love you. Share this one. Leave us a rating and review. and we'll see you next week.